This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Somewhere in here, as you mentioned earlier, Dave Hawk, a friend of yours and a former pro bodybuilder, he's going to bring you a new snack. It's not chicken snacks. This is an ostrich meat snack that's like a beef jerky style product that Dave was trying to sell to WWE. Of course, WWE doesn't bite. And eventually you start watching Monday Night Raw and Raw is War in the fall of 98 because Dave thought maybe that's worth another look. And that's when you called JR. And as you said, that original offer had been rescinded. And now they're going to have to earn your stripes. And part of that involved a training camp run by Dr. Tom Pritchard and Dory Funk Jr. What can you tell us about that training camp?
The training camp was great. It was strictly physical. It was all about training, learning to take bumps, learning how to sell, learning how to tell a story in a match. There was a lot of technique involved. Dory Funk is incredible technician, so he likes the basic wrestling moves, and so does Tom Pritchard also. You couldn't ask for any better trainers. So they had a Dory Funk dojo, and they would have it once a month for 5 days. So it wasn't a lot of training. I needed more than that if I was going to be, when I was signed with WWE, and, having 5 days a month just wasn't enough. And so after a couple months of that, they ended up sending me to Memphis to be a part of a Memphis Championship Wrestling.
Before we get to Memphis, I want to mention in my research, I found that you impressed everyone so much on day one with the way you quote unquote attacked the mat that word got back to Jim Ross, and Jim actually visits the camp with a contract in hand. And at the time it was the biggest deal that someone in developmental had gotten. Was that the $52,000 deal?
That was it. Yes. I'm not sure it was the biggest deal, but I didn't know it was. I thought it was a basic deal. But the thing is, you're right about that. And I was only there for an hour. I was picking up on everything so quickly that the first day JR came over and to the warehouse where the wrestling ring was and offered me a contract the same day that I started. It wasn't the next day or the third day. It was that day.
Wow.
So
wow.
I was doing something right. That was the fastest signing or tryout by anybody in the history of pro wrestling. So I was, that made me very confident that I was on to something and I was in the right place in my life.
Do you remember one thing in particular you did that really impressed Dr. Tom and Dory?
I think it was letting people lead me. In other words, when you're an amateur wrestler, you're very aggressive. I'll give you a great example. I was at the Dory Funk dojo when Tank Abbott came in. And when Tank was in the ring, he was squared up with the wrestler, and Tank was attacking him, and the wrestler was running away from him and trying to get distance, and Tank was just trying to smother him. And, they're like, no, you got to rest. You got to take your time. You got to tie up. You have to, show your technique. And it's not a fight. It's not trying to knock him out as fast as possible. That's what Tank was trying to do.
Right.
I took the approach. I'm going to learn this. So I'm going to take a defensive approach. I'm not going to be aggressive. And I'm going to slow down and let them do what they want to do to me. I'm going to bump and I'm going to sell. I'm not going to do anything offensive. Nothing on offense, everything defense. And I think they noticed that I turned that switch off in my head and I was able to pick up the technique involved that you needed to sell and take bumps. And it was, I just decided I was learning something new, and I had to forget everything I ever did in amateur wrestling, because all the rules of amateur wrestling are the complete opposite of pro wrestling. You show no emotion in amateur wrestling. You don't show your opponent that you're scared or you're angry or you're upset or you're excited. You don't show the crowd. You can show the crowd when you celebrate after you win, but They don't show emotion in the matches, and they're not telling a story. They're trying to get the match over with as quickly as possible.
Right.
If they can pin you in 5 seconds, they're going to pin you. So the system is different. You know, you either going for the kill right away or you're telling a story in a wrestling match. And I was getting that because I turned off my instincts from amateur wrestling and decided this is something new, and it worked.
I read, or actually Bruce told us too, that when you're working with Tom Pritchard, within 15 or 20 minutes, Tom was telling people you were taking flat back bumps better than a lot of pros. And that's when it came out, the phrase attacking the mat. Tom said that you were not scared or shy away from taking a bump, and that's really one of the first hurdles that anyone has to overcome in learning wrestling. But that was no issue for you, right?
No, but I'm going to tell you this: the first, 100 bumps I took hurt like a son of a bitch. I didn't want to attack the mat. It's just what I was taught, and I didn't want to disappoint them. But I was terrified. I didn't like bumping. Nobody likes bumping. You get used to it. You get a feel for it eventually, but your body's not set up to take thousands of bumps. That's not what the human body was, meant to do. It can take a toll on your body. So it hurt like a son of a bitch, but I was doing what I was told, and I did it pretty damn good.
As Bruce tells the story on our podcast, Tom would train with you in the morning. Then you guys would go work out and do cardio. And then you wanted to get back in the ring. So Tom would be all worn out and beat up every day after spending roughly 8 hours with you. How important was Dr. Tom to your early development?
He was so vital. Having him around all the time, accessible, being able to ask him questions, him giving me answers. It was like, it was more of, I guess, a boosted, program, a quicker program, more advanced program, being my coach, or Tom being my coach. It was very, very good for me, and I can't thank Tom enough. He was so knowledgeable about everything. He had an answer to everything, and his answers were always right. So, having Tom as my coach was incredible. It was the best move I ever made.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.